In today's episode of the Platform Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Sam Senior. He's a co-founder and CEO at TestBox. And TestBox is actually a very, very interesting product that I personally can resonate quite a bit with because it's very difficult very often to figure out, what is the, for example, next customer support software that should be, taking on board. Can read a lot of stuff online, but once you actually go into it, is it actually the right product and which one is the right for you? And typically then it's already too late once you're at this point. So we want to learn what TestBox is or how TestBox is helping you to compare and test software across the board. Looks like there is a focus on customer support at the moment, but we're going to learn more from Sam on that today. So Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Lucas. Very happy to be here.
Sure. So, maybe just to, from the very beginning, get into it, like give us a 360 overview. What is TestBox all about in your own words?
Yeah. TestBox is designed to make it incredibly easy for people to make the right decision when it comes to software for their business in just a few weeks instead of taking many months and feeling really confident that it's the right decision for them. The way we do that is making it very easy for you to test and compare the options that you're considering. So you might be looking at three or four different software platforms in the marketing automation space, for instance. Maybe you're comparing HubSpot versus ActiveCampaign versus Pardot versus Marketo. It's actually really hard to understand which is the right product for your company. And what you tend to do is go through many hours of sales calls and demos and pitches and all of this sort of thing. And very frequently, you don't really get to get your hands on the products to test drive them. It's like kind of going to buy a new car and the salesperson laid all the cars out in front of you, told you all about them, and then said, you have to buy before you're allowed to get inside one, which I think is just a crazy thing to be doing in the world today. So the goal here is that someone can come onto our platform entirely for free, select the options that they're most interested in, get in there with data and use cases pre-built for those platforms they're looking at, try something in one product, click the logo of a different product and do exactly that same workflow and see, does A work for me or does B work for me? Invite your team in, collaborate to make that decision. And as I said, get to making that right decision for your team in just a few weeks because you've really been able to test and compare the different options that really matter to you. And that's it.
What type of reactions have you seen from people that had that experience, being able to jump between tools in a, in one space and getting that feel? Like what is typically the type of reactions you see, and maybe what's something maybe also unexpected that you learned on how that approach would help them to make a decision?
Yeah, I have actually been incredibly excited to get feedback on this. As you can imagine, we started this company to help people be excited around buying software. My goal is to make it surprisingly enjoyable. So we've had some companies like pretty well-known companies like DoorDash and Profitwell and everyone's social and Ada and that sort of thing. We've got feedback from people using our app from those companies. And they've just said it's incredibly intuitive, easy to use, but really simple to understand how each solution is differentiated. Instead of spending tens of hours making this decision, you can just get in there and really decide based on actually using something that's fully built out. And I think we've got people who are just like, where has this been my entire life? I can't believe it hasn't existed previously, to I can't believe this is even possible, which has been really phenomenal for us to be on the receiving end of hearing that feedback. I think things that have been surprising is actually we've talked to sales teams at companies that we have integrated onto our platform, and they are now wanting to use our product in their own sales process because our version of their product is better than their version of their product during the sales process, because it takes them hours to build proof of concepts and build demo environments and all of that sort of thing, where it literally takes 10 seconds on our platform. You put in the prospect's details, you click a button, you can send them a link to a real environment that's pre-built with data, hundreds of pieces of information in there, use cases built out, all that sort of thing. And it actually means that their job is much easier as well. That has been a big surprise to us because we're not just serving companies who are looking to have a self-serve buying experience, but we're actually now also helping companies sell their product in a much easier, faster, more efficient way to those end companies who are preferring that experience.
Very interesting. Just unlocked a new use case there. Very.
Yeah, it was super cool and really exciting when that started to happen.
Okay, awesome. Who would be typically, I mean, it probably depends a little bit on the software that you're providing, but who's typically somebody that is jumping in and using TestBox, because that's quite interesting. Obviously, with different solutions you offer, you also change your personas a little bit on who's using it. Who tends to be the person or role that benefits the most?
Yeah, so right now we're very focused just on one software category. I think later we'll talk a bit around our expansion plans over the next year or two. But we've been very focused on the customer support help desk space. I used to work my co-founder and I actually worked in about 10 years ago as help desk agents. So we're kind of pretty familiar with the space. And so right now we're focused on the head of those functions. That really is currently the key target customer for us, is like, who is really making that decision for their team? Who from their team is important in that decision as well? So it's the head of a function typically, but we have seen sort of even VP level people being interested in the product because it's enabling their teams to be more successful.
Super interesting. It actually has been on the podcast a lot that a lot of marketers are moving to very value-based website copywriting, which obviously in a way is the flip side, right, of what you guys are doing. You give the experience back. So that is super.
Yeah, exactly. Like and the way that I think about the products we want on our platform, it's experiential products. So things that you spend your entire day in. It's not going to be like the ERP or like the background systems. It's going to be the products that you spend most of your day using because they enable you to be better at your job. Therefore, it's really important if something takes 5 clicks or actually it takes 2. And if you're doing that thing 50 times a day and you do that your entire job, like that stuff really does matter.
How do people hear about TestBox? Like, what's the client acquisition channels you guys leverage?
Yeah, so we're pretty early in activating our marketing. We only just brought on a marketing team about 2 months ago, so we're early days. So it's been a lot of word of mouth, a lot of really great content on LinkedIn, but also recently we launched a partnership with the website g2.com. If you're not familiar, it sort of is the place where there are millions of software reviewers providing their feedback on different platforms. It's really helpful to hear that feedback. But now actually on the products we have integrated into TestBox, there is a TestBox button on each of those G2 pages. So we can directly get that person who is an active user looking to buy something straight into the TestBox app from Zendesk website, from the Intercom profile, from whoever it is. So that's been a really exciting new distribution channel for us over the last month.
Yeah, maybe could you share a word on this? Because there's a lot of sort of marketers and founders out there, obviously, that are looking to try to build these types of relationships to foster growth. Maybe what's something that you've learned on what makes such a relationship work, being sort of an early stage company hooking into the platform of a very established player. Like,
yeah, I think it's really important. We took a partnership strategy. And what I mean by that is we're trying to build this ecosystem, right? So we need to play really nicely with all the different software vendors here or even distributors. And so whenever I reach out to them, it's always me trying sort of, I've taken a hypothesis approach of what are they trying to achieve? So G2 is a really good example. They have fantastic data on the reviews of the product. They have all of these leads, but it's actually really hard to identify because someone was on a G2 page, they therefore bought a piece of software. And currently they need to have all these different attribution models, et cetera, to be able to prove to those software companies and those sales teams why to buy the data from G2. But instead, you can imagine there's a world where someone starts on a G2 page, they come straight into TestBox, they make a purchase decision, and then they make the actual purchase. Suddenly, we're now helping G2 actually create that linkage from every single step in the buying process rather than this kind of black hole that exists today. Mm-hmm. And so when I was first thinking about this would be a really exciting partnership for us, it was actually me identifying this is where there is a gap for them and a potential for us to help solve that problem. And so as a team now, we're constantly thinking about what are those things that our potential partners could benefit from and how can we provide that to them?
Yep, makes complete sense. Very super interesting that how you structurally look at sort of the dynamics of the market. For a founder who is listening in, any practical advice? What did you just send them an email? Was it contacts? Was it cold? Like maybe share a bit of the story so people can get a feel of if they want to approach a company like that, like G2, what they need to do.
Yeah, a lot of it was who in my network might know someone who might know someone who might know someone. It was never I knew the person directly. We were very fortunate actually that we brought on a marketing advisor who's a VP of marketing at a SaaS company who had previously actually been one of the heads of marketing at G2 in this instance. And he introduced me to the CEO, Godard. But on a more sort of macro level, it has always been me just asking for help from people and then asking them if they know someone who knows someone and following up on it and making it as easy as possible for them. So it's identifying who the person is that I want to talk to at the very end and working back 3 steps, who are all the various connections and trying to make it as easy for them to connect me.
Very cool. What role do you attribute to the website for TestBox? Because obviously in a way you are all about sort of like getting people from, for example, a marketplace straight or a sort of a comparison page straight into a product experience. Now, how do you think about the website for TestBox?
Yeah, so the website is a major project that we're overhauling right now. If someone was to go on our website in May 2022, as it is right now, they would be, they'd be probably presented with something that's pretty basic. Over the next 3 months, that will change dramatically. We are looking to make it feel much more like a marketplace. So imagine something like Amazon.com, but a much more simple version that's easy to digest, but Amazon.com, but for software, where you could come in and say, here are the 2 or 3 filters that I want. Therefore, what are the 4 or 5 pieces of software that are likely to meet my needs? Click plus on each of them as if you're kind of creating a shopping cart and then go immediately into our app with all of that pre-built. We're going to have we're actually syndicating reviews from G2 onto our website as well, onto our marketplace. So you can both be paired with review information from peers who are like you, but then you can go straight into that test drive experience as well, directly from our website. So we're actually overhauling it a lot to be much more like a marketplace where it's very easy for you to get in there and then within 3 or 4 clicks be using the products.
Super interesting. Sounds like even reviews could be appearing within context of what they do.
Yes, 100%. That's exactly right.
That makes a lot of sense. Very good. Cool. Let's switch gears a little bit. I mean, we talked a bit about the company where you guys are at right now. You alluded to expansion already. Sort of where do you see this developing towards you with customer support or customer service types of products at the very moment? Where do you see this, moving out to next?
Yeah, so the end goal for TestBox is to be the marketplace that everyone goes to whenever they're looking to buy software. Basically, there shouldn't be another website you need to start on. And so to be able to do that, we need to be in all of the major software categories. Now, that's going to take some time for us to build out the infrastructure and build out the integrations and all of that sort of thing. So we started in the customer support space because I was very familiar with it. And so was Peter, our co-founder. We then are now moving more into sales and marketing functions. So we want to be able to provide software, multiple software categories for the marketing and sales function team. So you could go to a VP of sales and say, and VP of marketing, we have your marketing automation tools on here. We have your sales enablement tools. We have your CRM. So we're really focusing on that function from now on so that every time they're buying a piece of software in a year, they might buy 2 or 3 or 4. They know that we have it on TestBox and they'll keep coming back to us. So really it's focusing on that function and then we'll continue to go function by function throughout an organization.
Interesting. Awesome. And I assume you guys are in a way driving revenue for those software providers, or how does that look?
That's exactly right. So as I said before, TestBox is actually free. So there's no cost for you as a company to come compare and test your options. We monetize through taking a percentage of the value of the deal once it has been converted. So what we are doing essentially is bringing in those leads. We are then helping them to be qualified, and to evaluate and get to the point where they are now ready to put the credit card down and make a decision. When they indicate that they're ready, we then introduce them to the software vendor and account executive. And it might take 24, maybe it takes 48 hours for them to go from an introduction to signing a contract because they're sure that this is the right answer for them. And so because we've done all of that work, we get paid for all of that previous work, basically.
Super interesting. Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about yourself as a founder. You've done some very interesting things prior. Now I'm curious, as a founder, right, there is so much stuff that you have to look at, so much stuff to keep on learning all the time. Like, where do you still keep on educating yourself? Is there certain places you go to, or peer groups or mastermind groups? Like, what do you do in order to keep on developing?
Yeah, so I rely a lot on therapy and coaching and learning from my team as well. So I've been doing my own therapy for about 2.5 years, and it's a moment where I'm continuously learning around how to manage myself and lead more effectively. So I think I am someone who historically has always tried to achieve at the highest standards, but that has also led to me sometimes being a bit of a people pleaser. And so it can be really challenging sometimes when you're trying to keep someone accountable to, we said this was the deadline. I understand some things changed and that slipped, but like that was the deadline and we need to be meeting that. But that can be emotionally difficult when you've previously been a bit of a people pleaser, or you want people to like you back. And so I think that's been a really big learning piece for me, is like, how do I create accountability and ownership and stick by it? And that's an example, but there's other big topics like that. And I've been reading books like there's a HBR book called Managing Yourself that I've been reading recently, and things like that, that is really all about managing your own energy and being able to ensure you're bringing your best version of yourself to work, but also holding the line when something maybe isn't going right. So it's been things like that. I've been doing executive coaching as well to help give me frameworks around some of those emotional topics, or when I'm trying to make a decision around how to give feedback to someone or whatever it is. So I use a lot of those pieces. Plus, actually, podcasts are a big thing for me as well. There's a great podcast called The Knowledge Project by Farnham Street that I listen to a lot. So it's all of those sorts of things. Plus, I rely on some other founders that I know, and I'm involved in some cohorts of sort of early stage through to late stage founders, where we have forums and we share and swap stories around things that are going well and things that are not going so well. So it's a bunch of different places, and it's really important to have all of those different sources coming into you. Otherwise, it can feel really lonely in the CEO founder job very, very easily. And it can feel like you don't have the answers to things, and you don't. But if you have all of those resources, you can find the answer.
Yeah, I really appreciate, honestly, that you share sort of that 360-degree angle. It's not just strategies and performance, it's also, you know, the mind well-being, the mental well-being of the founders and everybody involved. So really appreciate that. Now, some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today. Are you ready for those?
Yes.
What's the last book you read?
Okay, so I'm reading Managing Yourself, but previously I read Good to Great by Jim Collins. Fantastic book, just helping you really understand where you need to make quick decisions, how you need to think about hiring and all of these sorts of things, and identifying really what your big audacious goal is that you're going for. I absolutely loved it.
What's one single thing the company is focused on the most at the moment?
Demand generation.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, what's the one thing you would fix for your role today?
I wish that I was the most knowledgeable marketing wizard in the entire world, because I think demand gen is on the marketplace side of our business. That is a challenge because no one knows about us. We're building this category. I wish we had instant brand awareness, because anytime people use our app, they love it. So for me, it's just, I need everyone to know about it.
What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
It's all the same topic. It is all about lead gen and bringing people into the app. That's the thing that keeps me awake the most.
And for the very last question, right? If we would do a little bit of time travel, right? We go back to the very first day that you started working on TestBox, right? You just, I don't know exactly how you started, if it was probably, you know, somewhere in a co-working space, home, whatever it was. What's the one advice you would give yourself for that journey?
Ooh. I think I have historically had a habit of putting all of the major milestones and goals on my shoulders. And after a while, that really does tend to weigh you down. And it also means you're less effective. And so for me, it would be much earlier on sharing the load with some of the most critical team members we have around really big initiatives. I'm getting better at that, but for a period of time, I felt really burned out because I felt like I was the person driving a lot of stuff. And I was, but I didn't need to be. We had hired a team. We've got fantastic people at our company. I should have been relying on them earlier than I have been. And so I think I wish I could change that immediately.
Gotcha. Sam, really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Platform Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about TestBox today, what's the one thing that they should remember?
If they use TestBox, they never need to go through a painful B2B software buying experience again.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Platform Presents.
No worries. Thank you so much, Lucas.